and then they went back to living as normal, except the people that sold all their stuff. And that is going to be kind of a theme as we progress through history. Interesting. Do you notice an exponential kind of a theme here? It kind of is scattered. The ones that are yellow, can you see those ones? The ones that are yellow are humongous scares. These are the ones where people, like more than 1,000 people, would sell everything that they had. They would give away their slaves and try to become knighted and things like that. Those have also been on the rise. There was one about 1,000, which we talked about, we're going to look at in a second. And then just in the last century or two, there's been 4 of these huge scares where people absolutely freaked out. And so very interesting. A closer look at the timeline for a second. This is the Middle Age right here. Rome died around here, and you can see the Mayan Baktuns lined up. This is 9, 10, 11, and 12. 12 was where the sunstone was made. Here's where the United States was born. The Mayan way of keeping track of time, this is what this, it represents, sorry, that little symbol represents that, was developed around this time. This is the peak of the Mayan culture. And then you can see the Apocalyptic Prophecies growing right around the time that the United States comes around. So apparently we get scared easily in this country. A lot of them have to do with the United States actually also. So we're going to look at the year 1000 as a type for what we're going through today. People started doing pilgrimages. Now remember, this is the Middle Ages, so the Catholic Church was in full reign at this time. They had not only religious power, but they also had a lot of political power, and they were wielding their religious fist with the strength of the politics behind them. They could burn people and put people in jail and that sort of thing for being a heretic. The word heretic comes from the word heres, and the word heres just means decision or to think on your own. So the term heretic was invented to describe somebody who was making up their own mind and thinking for themselves during that time period. Kind of interesting. So people who were Catholic generally were making pilgrimages. They were starting wars to make sure that they were get enough points for God. There was mass penitence. These poor priests sitting in their little cubbies all day and people pouring out their hearts, all of their sins. Kings and dukes and counts and everybody tried to become saints. Will you please saint me? That way when God comes, he will not smite me. Fervor brought on the Crusades, and complete wealth gifts to the Roman Catholic Church were common. Complete wealth gift means somebody gave absolutely everything. They would put their kids into to become on the track to become priests. They would give away all of their clothing, all of their wealth, any money, even their plow, their cows, and their store of beans. Everything, especially as the year approached, because they were sure that if God came, they were in trouble. Slaves were let free. And it was difficult for information to spread back then because they didn't have the internet. They didn't have phones. You couldn't call up somebody on the other side of Germany, or on the other side of France, and say, "Hello, I heard that the world was going to end this year. Sell everything." I couldn't do that. So everything had to be transmitted via foot traffic and horses. So the traders, or the people on the trade routes, were the ones who really carried that information. Surprising that it spread all over Europe in that way, because it's so difficult to transfer information. So here's 2 quotes directly from this time period, one before and one that happened on that was written on the day of. The first one was written by, I forget who it was written by, but it was in a particular document called Les Prétendus, page 161. And the second one is from C.T. Wood, and he was writing in the Age of Chivalry, page 81. These are both translated. Men languished miserably in the torpor of inaction, concerning themselves no more with the work of body or the spirit. As the year 1000 approached, sometimes people would become so depressed and so maybe they'd killed somebody and they had no way to give enough money to the church to feel like they were not going to go to hell for a very long time. And so they would sit there totally languid and waste away. Sometimes they wouldn't even eat. because they were so distraught. People would be throwing up on the street sometimes from the stress of the situation. And then 1,000 came and went New Year's Eve. The harrowing vision of New Year's Eve, 999, has now been replaced by endless discussions of horse collars and windmills and plows. So people went back to things as usual, once again, except for the people who had just given everything to the church or had been taken advantage of in that way. I'm going to tell you a quick story, though. There was once upon a time a 10-year-old shepherd, and this little boy was given the task of shepherd when he was so young because that's how they did it. They wanted the kid to start out a shepherd, live his whole life, and be very effective as a shepherd his whole life. And so he was told, this is what your job is, your trade. He didn't have a choice. So he went up in the hills and started taking care of sheep. He was an apprentice shepherd for a while, and then the old dude finally died, and he was left up there by himself with his sheep and maybe a bat or something to fend off against wolves. And some of you know this story. Soon, he got lonely, very lonely. Can you imagine being like a 10 or 11, and you're up there all alone with your little sheep? And I'm debating whether or not I want to pull up a sheep sound effect and play it on my phone. It is very lonely to be alone. So he came up with a plan. He said, why not let's see, every time I yell wolf, and there's a wolf, they come up here, and they're going to be saving me with their spear. Because there was a group of men in the city who said, anytime you need us, you yell, and we'll come and we'll take care of you, because you're still only 11. And so he decided, wolf, whoa! He yelled at the top of his lungs, and soon 6 men with spears. Where is it? He's gone. He's over in the woods somewhere. So how are you guys? Got bread there. So he got his company for the day. They thought nothing of it. The wolf must have escaped, and he got to have his company. It worked out great. A couple days later, he found himself lonely again. Wolf! He called out, "You wolf," again. And pretty soon the guys came up with their spears. It wasn't a wolf the first time, was there? And they kind of understood. This kid is he's not the brightest crayon in the box. So he decides to try again a couple of days later. And this time the gentlemen stay down there. No. Sorry, I almost mixed it up. A couple of days later, he's hitting his sheep with a stick or walking around, eating a dandelion or whatever. And all of a sudden he hears his face turns white. He feels his heart start beating, and there it is. One of the biggest wolves he's ever seen. Its yellow eyes are looking at his sheep, just like a bunch of sheep biscuits walking around on little thin legs. They look delicious, and the boy, wolf! He yells wolf again, and this time, nobody shows up, because they're used to him calling out wolf, and this poor little guy has to watch as the wolf picks one of his choice lambs and rips it apart before his little eyes. And he learned a valuable lesson that day. So let us learn a valuable lesson. Let us not be disappointed again. And let us not be caught off guard. So many people are saying the world is going to end. That when it doesn't end, we think it's not going to ever. We get used to hearing it. We become immune. But I believe that it is a situation that is like crying wolf, because I do believe the world is going to end. As I studied this 2012 stuff, I started finding interesting things. It's like if you found a rabbit hole and you hated rabbits, and you started digging up the rabbit hole, and you're like, well, this is really long, I don't think I want to go down this track. I had a decision to make, and I decided to see how deep the rabbit hole went. And so I continued studying